Hello, everyone. Welcome to Options with Doug, streaming live on Monday and Wednesday at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time on Bookmap Discord and the Bookmap YouTube channel. Before I get started, I need to go through the disclosures. General disclosure. All Bookmap limited materials, information, and presentations are for educational purposes only and should not be considered specific investment advice nor recommendations. Risk disclosure, trading futures, equities, and options involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results. Here's my contact information. The best way to get in touch with me is through Discord. My name on Discord is Doug P. Also in Bookmap Discord, there's an Options-Doug chat channel. You can post questions, comments, and content related to the topics of my presentation and the topics of the channel that I'll go through in just a moment. I'm also on X. My name there is @Pless. I do have a few announcements. First of all, there are several deals, good sales going on right now. First of all, Black Friday, you can take 50% off Global Plus quarterly subscription plus 50% off data 3 months as well. And that's good through the end of the year. Then there's the Cyber Monday sale, 60% off Global Plus for 1 month, plus data for 1 month. Again, that ends at the end of this year. You can also take 50% off add-ons, like the MBO bundle, and that offer is valid through December 31st, end of year. Then finally, you can post in social media, show Bookmap the add-ons that you're using, and you'll get a refund. And you can scan the QR code for more details. Here are the key tenets to my approach to trading. I believe that options trades and market maker hedging activity are key drivers of price of many stocks and futures. That certainly applies to large cap tech stocks like the Magnificent Seven stocks, as well as the equity index futures like the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ 100. And for the S&P 500, SPX is the underlying index. SPY is the ETF version of that index, and the ES futures contract is a derivative of SPX. And when traders buy and sell puts and calls in SPX and SPY, market makers take the opposite side of those trades and they hedge their delta exposure with the ES futures. And for the NASDAQ 100, NDX is the underlying index. QQQ is the much more liquid ETF version of that index. And the NQ futures contract is a derivative of NDX. And just like the S&P 500, when traders buy and sell puts and calls in SPX and NDX and QQQ, market makers take the opposite side of those trades and they hedge their delta exposure with NQ futures. And we'll see an example of why I say ES and NQ are derivatives of the underlying index, because the current ES and NQ futures contracts will cease to exist in a couple weeks. The focus of my presentation today and the focus of the Options-Doug chat channel is options order flow, the impact of options markets on stocks and futures, and the influence of market maker hedging flow on price action. I have a two-step process for trading, and the first is planning, and I use positional analysis. I look at how traders and market makers are positioned in the options market and how those positions change from day to day to develop a thesis regarding expected trading range and volatility for the day, as well as a directional bias. And the second step in my process is execution. I look at real-time order flow on Bookmap and real-time market maker hedging flow on Spotgamma Hero to confirm my thesis, and for setups. And when I talk about setups today, I will be focusing on an underlying asset. Setups in that asset can be taken with futures contracts, shares of stock, or options, depending on the asset as well as the way you like to trade. Questions and comments are welcome, and I will be watching both the Options-Doug chat channel as well as the chat and YouTube for your questions and comments. Please feel free to post. I'll do my best to answer your questions. Hello, Stephen. Welcome. Glad you're here. And hello, Amir. Welcome. Glad you're here as well. Here's my agenda for today, Wednesday, December 10th. First of all, we'll go over news items, economic data, events, and earnings for today as well as the rest of the week. Then I'll go through my positional analysis. Then I'll review some setups from earlier today. Then I'll take a look at the live market. And of course, today is FOMC day, and I'll stop whatever I'm doing just a couple of minutes before 2 p.m. and we'll take a look at the S&P 500 futures primarily for a reaction to the announcement and then statement. And then I'll wrap it up as the press conference begins at 2:30. All right, let's move on now. And of course, again, FOMC day today. So let's take a look at the CME FedWatch tool. So we took a look at this on Monday, and it has changed just a little bit. So the current Fed funds rate, target rate, 375 to 400 basis points. And then there's an 89% chance of a quarter point, a 25 basis point cut, and then around a 10% chance of no cut at all. So compared with recent FOMC meetings, that is a little bit of more uncertainty, but it's still 90% chance that there is a cut. So the debate really is what's in the statement and what does Jerome Powell say in the press conference. Is it a hawkish cut or a bullish cut, a dovish cut? All right, so we'll see soon enough. All right, let's move on. And also upcoming Oracle reports earnings after the close today. This could be very important for the AI trade. And then Broadcom reports earnings after the close on tomorrow. So key events for the week, and this could be somewhat of a turning point for the rest of the year. All right, let's move on to positional analysis now. This is the ES Futures and Bookmap. And let me point out a couple of key levels here. The SPX 68.45 volatility trigger, and price is chopping up and down around that level. It has acted as resistance earlier today. Nice entry point for a short. And then the 68.50 level just above that. These are both SPX levels, and also a good entry point for short. I like to lean against those levels. All right, before I take a closer look at this chart, let's step back. Let's take a look at our higher time frame. I'm going to go to SPX, the underlying index. This is a 30-day, a 1-day, 1-year chart in SPX. Key takeaways here, the big rally began in April, and it has slowed down into more consolidation now. And that was primarily after the October 10th tariff tantrum. One other notable day today is the day after NVIDIA reported earnings, what I call the NVIDIA earnings AI puke. And essentially traders have looked at AI stocks now as overpriced. But the S&P 500 has recovered somewhat, not up to all-time highs, but still recovered. So let's pick that up now with a 30-day 1-hour chart. Most recent price action, NVIDIA earnings, AI puke. SPX did trade down below the 1010 tariff tantrum low and has recovered and is now trading in a range between around 6,800 and really 6,890 on the high side. That would be this range right here. and most recently SPX finding support for the last few days since last Thursday, right around 68.25, 68.26. That's this right here. So we'll see if that holds today. All right, let's take a look at levels on this chart. And welcome, the Gavin Hoffman asked, what is your strategy and what entries are you looking for? I'll get to that. Let me finish up my positional analysis first. Then we'll get to some of that. And well, we'll move on. All right, so let's take a look at levels on this chart. First of all, the dashed purple lines, we'll start with the expected moves. The dashed purple lines are showing the lower and upper weekly expected move. This is based on the options market and based on the closing price for SPX from last Friday. Those levels remain in place for the entire week. And then the dashed blue lines are showing the lower and upper daily expected move, also based on the options market, based on the closing price for SPX from yesterday. And those levels do change every day. And I do post those in the Options-Doug chat channel in Discord every day the day before. And I also post the expected moves for ES and NQ. So I post the expected moves for SPX, ES, and NQ every day the day before. And SPX trading right in the middle of that daily expected move range. All right, let's take a look at the Spotgamma levels on this chart. These are provided to Spotgamma subscribers. They're based on gamma-weighted open interest. I'm going to focus on the key daily levels. First of all, the put wall remains at 6,500. That's a strike with large net negative gamma that can be expected to act as support. And the next level up is the volatility trigger in play for today at 68.45, and that level has been in play for quite some time. So that's Spotgamma's proprietary volatility and gamma flip level. Below that level, market makers' position on the gamma curve is negative. In a negative gamma environment, market makers have to trade with price to hedge their delta exposure. That tends to enhance or increase volatility. Above that level, market makers' position on the gamma curve is positive. In a positive gamma environment, market makers have to trade against price to hedge their delta exposure. That tends to subdue or decrease volatility. And we'll take a look at, this is based on Spotgamma's older total open interest model, and we'll take a look at a view of gamma based on their newer synthetic open interest model. It does paint a little bit different picture. And then next, all right, so that's the volatility trigger right here. Then next, 7,000 is the call wall and the absolute gamma strike. The call wall is a strike with large net positive gamma. It can be expected to act as resistance. And it is also the absolute gamma strike. That's a strike with largest absolute positive and negative gamma. So that is where most of the gamma-weighted open interest is concentrated. And by the way, there were no shifts in levels for SPX and SPY. The levels were a little bit odd today. I did see a message pop up briefly on the Spotgamma website about a problem with the key levels for the indexes. I checked later on and I didn't see any changes, but there were no changes in levels for SPX and SPY, a little bit odd. And we'll see for NASDAQ and QQQ just a moment. For NDX, the volatility trigger shifted lower. For QQQ, volatility trigger shifted higher. And that's it. That's all the shifts in levels. All right, so here again, the key daily levels. Put wall on the downside at 6,500. Call wall, absolute gamma strike on the upside at 7,000. And then SPX chopping up and down around the 68.45 volatility trigger. All right, let's wrap up our view of SPX with a 1 minute chart. So I'm showing, let's zoom in on this just a little bit. So this is about 4 days worth of data, dark shaded area showing regular trading hours. So here's this support zone that I pointed out before on the 1 hour chart. Again, right around 68.26, acting as support again today. And then the volatility trigger in play, as well as the 68.50 level. Let's take a quick look at SPY, then we'll get to Bookmap. So SPY also chopping around its volatility trigger at 683. It looks like right around 684 resistance on the upside. That was also resistance before the cash open. All right, back to Bookmap now. So I've talked about SPX and SPY levels on this chart, and I use the Bookmap ES chart no matter what form of the S&P 500 I trade, whether it's ES futures or SPX options, SPY options, or SPY shares. This is the chart that I use, and again, I mark the key SPX levels on this chart. So here's some of the levels that I mentioned. The SPY 683 volatility trigger and the SPX 6845 volatility trigger, and then the SPX 6850 level. That was noted as support in the Spotgamma AM Founders Note, but so far acting as resistance. And that most likely will change after the FOMC announcement. And by the way, there's a difference in price between ES and SPX, and today it is somewhere between 6 and 7. So I'm using 7, so I'm showing that ES to SPX offset at 7 points. So let's say 68.50. I'm showing that at ES 68.57. All right, let's take a look at NASDAQ. I have about 12 minutes before FOMC. Let's take a look at NASDAQ. NQ futures, the Bookmap, somewhat of a downtrend this morning, and then now chop consolidation between around NQ 25,600 and maybe 680 on the upside. Let's take a look at the underlying index charts. We'll start with QQQ. Zoom in on this. All right, so another volatility trigger in play for today. That's the QQQ 624 volatility trigger, mostly acting as a resistance today. And then support at the 621. That's just a round number level on the downside. We'll see the NDX level that acted as support. And that's the 25,500 large gamma 4 level. And then this large gamma 2 level. At 26,000. Price chopping up and down around that. All right, back to Bookmap. So that was 25,600 large gamma 2 level right here that I just mentioned. There's the QQQ 624 volatility trigger, mostly acting as resistance after the cash open. And then this QQQ 621 NDX 25,500 large gamma 4 level acting as support. All right, so those are the levels in play for the S&P 500 and NASDAQ. I've got about 10 minutes. Let's take a look at Gamma now. We'll take a look at the Spotgamma trace Gamma heat map. This is pretty light positioning. The GEX bar is over on the left. All right, in the chart, the heat map, red shading indicates negative gamma. We're looking for a higher volatility, faster price movement, and negative gamma. And then there is some zoom out just a little bit. Positive gamma above, way above, and way below. But in the current region between the spot gamma implied one-day move high and low, it is pretty much all negative gamma. Master Chief, welcome, glad you're here. Ask, as we get close to FMC, will the book become blank? Yes, most likely. Will market makers take down their orders? Yes. That is pretty typical. We'll take a look at that and we'll see that on Bookmap. All right, so looking for, also note, a pretty low stability index. So looking for higher volatility, of course, after the announcement, the statement, and then especially during the press conference. Let's see what traders have been doing so far. And we'll go to the options market, see what traders have been doing in the S&P 500 index components. And that is, we've already looked at two of those, SPX and SPY. This also includes ES and XSP. The white line is price for SPX, and the purple line is the hero signal. This is showing options trades and market maker hedging activity for the S&P 500 index components. Again, SPX, SPY, ES, and XSP. And net for the day, it is negative. Negative delta notional indicates traders are taking negative delta options positions, and they are selling calls and buying puts. And that was also shown on the trace gamma heat map. This purple line right here is the hero signal. Also trending down, starting to move down more sharply. Right around 11:30, 12 o'clock, something like that. But so far, the S&P 500 is hanging in there. So there's another signal that we can take a look at for the S&P 500. That's the S&P 500 equity signal. This is showing options trades and market maker hedging activity for all 500 stocks in the S&P 500 index. And this is all also leaning bearish and really started to drop down a little bit more sharply just before 1 o'clock. But if you were trading today, there were both long and short setups. So let's go to Bookmap now. Let's go back to the... And actually what I'm going to do, I'm going to open up another hero chart. Let's go to full screen. By the way, I'm using the older version of Hero. When I jump around from one instrument to another, I think this works a little bit better. So I'm going to go to the equities, and I'm going to zoom in so we can retain the zoom at each chart. All right, let's take a look at NASDAQ. Well, let's go back to the Bookmap chart. Go to Bookmap. All right, so again, long and short setups. And again, I like to lean against a level. Shorts at 68.50 or 68.45. or sell a call spread, buy a put spread, which is my preference for SPX. And this is interesting. Right here, the subchart. Light blue line is icebergs, iceberg orders. Large traders use iceberg orders to hide their size. And stop orders shown with a yellow line. And then cumulative volume delta shown with a dark blue line, magenta to dark blue, depending on whether it's negative or positive. These numbers are so small, they're just insignificant. So nobody's really doing much of anything. And it's been a choppy session with both long and short opportunities. All right, so let's zoom in. I'll darken up the heat map. So there's not much in there. So Master Chief, really the only orders here I can see are limit buy orders right around 60 at 40. And we'll see if those remain in place. All right, so we've got about 3 minutes. Let's take a quick look at NASDAQ. Then we'll get back to the S&P 500. NASDAQ, at the lower end of the recent range at 25,600. Back to yes. Zoom in on this a bit. So order book definitely thinning out. And back to Hero. Take a quick look at NASDAQ. Bullish for the day. And also the Mag 7. This is the other signal that we can take a look at for the for the NASDAQ and also for the S&P 500. This is showing options trades and market maker hedging activity for the stocks known as the Magnificent Seven: Apple, Amazon, Google, Meta, Microsoft, NVIDIA, and Tesla. And these stocks make a very large component of the NASDAQ 100 and the S&P 500 as well, and can often drive price. And if we have time, we'll take a look and see what traders have been doing in several of the Mag 7 stocks. All right, back to the S&P 500. And let's zoom in now. Get ready for the FOMC. Got about 2 minutes. All right, back to Bookmap. All right, last call for questions before the FOMC. And if I have time, I'll take a look at a couple stocks, and do want to take a look at Oracle as well. Of course, again, Oracle reports earnings after the close. All right, here you go, Master Chief. It looks like the last orders in the order book in the range that I'm looking at on this chart have been pulled. So pretty light order book here. Looks like there's still 94 limit buy orders at 68.40. It looks like that is also a large, mostly one order, shown by this little line right here. All right, 20 seconds. And by the way, I am watching CNBC on another screen, and the the news will be delayed on that. Won't be real time. All right, 2 p.m. Initial reaction bullish. Typically, there's a lot of up and down movement. All right, the S&P 500 breaking up above the 6850 level, up to 685. That's the SPY large gamma 4 level. Very bullish reaction. All right, as expected, 25 basis point rate cut. And let's zoom in on this. Let's see what options traders are doing. All right, traders taking positive delta options positions in the S&P 500 index. Let's take a look at equities. Same thing. Pop in price, pop in options trades. Back to the index signal. All right, back to Bookmap. All right, so it looks like right around the SPY 685 level, acting as resistance. Then now the 6850 may be acting as support. All right, so finally now we're getting some response in these subchart components. Large traders buying with iceberg orders, shown by the light blue line. Also aggressive buyers, shown by the green volume dots, rising cumulative volume delta. Also buy stop orders helped to fuel that move higher. That didn't last long. All right, so 6850 did not act as support. And now let's see if the 685 volatility trigger acted as support. All right, so the pulling of the orders in the order book, much more apparent now. At 157, a few seconds after, and then the last just right before. Hello, Goose. Welcome. Glad you're here. All right, let's see what options traders are doing. All right, so it looks like an initial burst of buying and then more consolidation. SPX right down to the 68.45 volatility trigger. Now it looks like that may be acting as support. Let's take a look at a couple things here. So I'm shifting to, or adding next expiry. So the purple line is showing options trades that expire today, tomorrow, next week. This is all trades, all expirations. And then the teal line is showing next expiry, which for the S&P 500, that would be trades that expire today at the end of the day. So it looks like a pretty large portion of the options trades today are 0 DTE options, and that's pretty typical. And let's check equities. Let me turn this off again. We'll check puts and calls. All right, so call buyers coming in. And I may have to jump back. Call buyers, put sellers. Calls shown by the rising orange line. When traders buy calls, market makers sell the calls. They have to buy ES futures to hedge their delta exposure. Very nice support at the 68.45 volatility trigger. And back to Bookmap. Let's check NASDAQ. Fed plans to initiate purchases of shorter-term treasuries. Fed to buy $40 billion in bills starting December 12th. Check NASDAQ. Also move higher. Support at VWAP, the light blue line there, just above the 25,600 large gamma 2 level. Note in the Fed meeting there were 3 dissents. All right, SPX, ES moving up above the initial move higher. Let's check, see what options traders are doing. All right, they continue to sell puts and buy calls. Let's check equities. That line looks a little bit more bullish. Let's go back and let's shift to total. Overall looking bullish. And let's shift over to the newer version of Hero here. And let me see what that looks like. So let's zoom in. So the yellow line is just a 9 period moving average, 9 EMA. All right, so that's the new version of Hero. And we'll just stick with this since we're going to keep that went to Tesla. Sorry about that. All right, now the Hero signal turning lower. All right, back to Bookmap. Let's check Trace. All right, S&P 500 moving up toward the implied one-day move high. Still a low stability index. Still a negative gamma. All right, both the equities and the index Hero signal continue to move higher. Let's see where the S&P 500 might be heading. Up above is the ES, upper daily expected move. Let's check our SPX chart. And this is the SPX, upper daily expected move, up above. That's the next key level up above. That's at 68.87. And I do calculate that independently or separately from the ES, upper daily expected moves. And then up above that is the SPX 6900 level. So that could be the next target in sight if all's clear after the press conference, and then Oracle and Broadcom earnings are also viewed favorably. Well, let's take a look at some stocks. And the Gavin Hoffman had asked about strategy and what entries I'm currently looking for. So let's take a look at some stocks. First stock I wanted to take a look at is Amazon. So this is what I call a bullish opening drive. And when I see this, I'm looking to get long or sell a call spread at this point right here after the bullish opening drive. So get long, whether you buy calls or sell puts or buy shares of stock. That's up to you and the way you like to trade. And let's go take a look at Hero. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to open up one more tab here with Hero again. Open full screen. Let's go to the older version here. Let's take a look at, I'm going to shift to puts and calls. Go to Amazon. All right, so here's the bullish opening drive. Again, two ways to play this. So here's my strategy. Here's what I'm looking for. First of all, traders buying calls, aggressively buying calls at the open. Full alert signals significant options activity, gets my attention. So I'm looking to get long, looking for any pullback to get long. Or second option is to sell a call spread. And this is call exhaustion right here. And if the call signal reversed lower, that would be a call peak pattern, a very reliable bearish reversal pattern. So either one of those, I would look to sell a call spread. All right, so two strategies. This is a very typical pattern that repeats over and over again. Bullish opening drive to call exhaustion. All right, next stock I want to take a look at is Microsoft. Just the opposite here, a bearish opening drive. Traders have been selling calls all day. Full alert comes in just after the open and continues lower. And it looks like now Microsoft is trading down, maybe finding support at the 477.50 hedge wall. So the trade here was to look for a short, especially with the hero signal, the call signal moving lower, this consolidation here right around 480, and then a break below, looking for a short there or another short here. And again, selling shares, selling a call spread, buying a put spread, however you like to trade. All right, next stock, NVIDIA. Another bearish opening drive. Very nice call peak reversal pattern here. Setting up a short right around 945. All right, so let's go take a look at the charts in Bookmap. So we took a look at Amazon, very bullish opening drive. Look for any way to get long, and then the call exhaustion, sell a call spread, buy a put spread. Next stock, Microsoft. Bearish opening drive. Look for a way to get short. A little bit of a divergent short here. Really didn't pay out that much. And then this short did. Absorption right around the 480-250 level. You can see buyers were exhausted. And Microsoft continues lower. NVIDIA. Bearish opening drive. Multiple entry points. Deep pullbacks to get short as traders sell calls. Now NVIDIA trying to recover. Last stock, let's take a look at Oracle. See how traders are positioning. So Oracle today, there was a bearish opening drive, then pretty much chop after that between right around 219 and 221. Let's see what options traders are doing today. And we'll go to Oracle. Pretty much chop. But net negative delta notional for the day. Net for the day, they've been selling calls and buying puts. Overall, though, I believe Oracle options traders were positioned bullish, and that was shown in the Spotgamma AM Founders Note. All right, there you go, Gavin Hoffman. All right, back to S&P 500 now. SPX continues to move higher. This is the S&P 500 index signal. Check the equity signal. Also moves higher, moving higher. Back to Bookmap. Back to ES now. So there's a breakout at 2 p.m. Zooming all the way out. So pretty typical. So far, FOMC day chart. Pretty much chop in the morning and then breakout one way or another. Some nice trend break there. Right at the SPY 683 volatility trigger. Zoom back in on this. All right, so it looks like some aggressive sellers are starting to come in. You can see the magenta volume dots. Volume dots in Bookmap show market buy minus sell. Magenta dots indicate more sellers than buyers. Green volume dots indicate more buyers than sellers. Floyd's Garage, welcome, glad you're here. Did I look at Meta? No. Yeah, we can. We'll take a look at Meta. All right, so at this point, traders have, of course, read the announcement, heard the announcement. Algos have parsed the statement and now waiting on the press conference. So let's take a look at Meta. Meta, nice pop after 2 p.m., but overall a bearish opening drive. And this is actually a pretty narrow range for Meta. Meta bearish opening drive, breakdown below. Actually, I have it. Let me zoom out a little bit more. Maybe on, yeah. Yeah, still a fairly narrow range for Meta. Chop in the morning, reversal right around noon. And the support at the liquidity at 644. Those are limit buy orders. Looks like absorption at that level, not maybe some, but not all the orders consumed. Let's see what options traders are doing in Meta. Go to Meta. All right, net for the day, selling calls and buying puts. Bearish opening drive, full alert, trader selling calls. Meta breaks down to the 647.50 hedge wall. And then chop consolidation after that. Now trading just below the hedge wall as traders continue to sell calls. Looks like they have reversed a little bit, but again, net for the day, buying puts and selling calls. All right, so initial move bullish. Nice pullback entry for a long. And now consolidation waiting on the press conference. All right, back to ES. All right, questions, comments? Any more stocks you want me to take a look at? Let's take a look at Trace. Still light positioning, negative gamma, and price trading above the 68.45 volatility trigger. Back to Bookmap. So that was about a 20, let's see, 25 point move higher. Somewhere between 25 and 30 point move higher. And now consolidation again, waiting for the press conference. So again, there was a 25 basis point rate cut as expected. Algos have parsed the statement and the announcement. Now again, waiting on the press conference. Let's check NASDAQ. Similar pattern, sharp move up, deep pullback, back to new highs. And now moving a little bit lower. Let's go back to Hero. I'm going to shift back to the older version. All right, so initial fuel helping to move the price higher. Traders taking positive delta positions, and that stopped pretty quickly, and now the S&P 500 is consolidating. Let's check equities. Similar pattern. Bullish initially. Looks like following price just a little bit. Then Hero's starting to slow down, now turning lower. In NASDAQ, we see cumulative volume delta shown by the dark blue line falling. And David, welcome, glad you're here. Asked, good to take pullbacks on NQ and ES. Yeah, it was earlier, especially this pullback right here, down to VWAP and this 25,600 level. Good pullback longs. So that was after the FOMC. Earlier today, NASDAQ was a little bit better, taking shorts on the initial downtrend. But yeah, if you got this initial move up or the pullback in ES, yeah, that was a good long as well. We're right now, this soon before the press conference begins, I would wait. Looks like the orders in the order book have started to fill in again. Let's see what options traders are doing. All right, equity signal now looks like maybe stabilizing. Index signal starting to move higher again. Nope, sorry, it wasn't. All the way over to the right. So net moving down. So the next support level would be the 68.45 volatility trigger. The liquidity up here, right around 68.75, acting as resistance. That last one, right around 217, 18, something like that. Very nice entry point for a short. Large traders were taking advantage of that, selling with iceberg orders. Also aggressive sellers shown by the falling cumulative volume delta. Now the S&P 500 testing the 68.45 volatility trigger. So we'll see if that acts as support. So I've got another couple of minutes before the press conference begins. Then I'll wrap it up before the press conference begins. Key point here again, the liquidity in the ES heat map, they are showing good resistance level at 68.75. Limit sell orders in the order book. Looks like they were not filled after 210. Fed signals higher bar for next cut. So it sounds like this may be the hawkish cut that people were looking for, that traders were looking for. All right, last call for questions, comments before the press conference begins. So 68.45 holding as support. Let's see what options traders are doing. Then we'll wrap it up. All right, hero signal shifting higher as traders take positive delta positions at the 68.45 volatility trigger. That's the index signal. We'll check equities. Equity signal flattening out. Oh, now the index signal turning lower. So make me just making a lower high. We'll wrap it up with Bookmap. All right, Bookmap continues to move higher. Fed says GDP outlook stronger next year. All right, the press conference is beginning. I want to thank everyone for watching. Thanks for your questions and comments. Have a great afternoon. And let's see. Fyro asked about Palantir. We'll take a quick look at Palantir, then we'll wrap it up. Palantir was in the news yesterday. Awarded a contract from the U.S. Navy. And Palantir trading higher today. All right. Everyone, again, have a great afternoon. Good luck trading this afternoon. And I will see you on Monday. Bye.